Crop review. Hello! In today's video, we're going to be having a look at all the different crops in Hypixel Skyblock and rating them on 4 different scales from 1 to 5, and we're going to figure out which crops are good, which crops are bad, and which crops are just kind of mediocre. The 4 categories we're going to be rating them on are the amount of farming XP we get, the amount of money we get, how satisfying and easy harvesting them is, and how much time it takes to build the farm. First, here are all the crops that we're not going to be reviewing. Netherwort, cactus, and mushrooms. And you may ask why? Well, it's because they're cringe. Here are the crops that we are going to be reviewing. Pumpkins, melons, carrots, potatoes, wheat, sugarcane, and cocoa beans. We're going to be using these 4 farms plus some primary school level maths to figure out all the information we need about each different crop. I built all of these farms on my Twitch stream, so go follow it, and if you're watching this video when it was just released, then I will be streaming live on my Twitch at twitch.tv/Nullzee live. Oh, and one last thing, we are so close to YouTube rank, so if you could do me a favor and just subscribe to get me over that line and get YouTube rank, that would be fantastic. That's all I have to say. Enjoy the rest of the video. To figure out which crop is best, I'm going to be using these farms and we're going to be doing a 5-minute run of each crop and we're going to be seeing which gives the most XP and which gives the most money. Alright, let's go on to the first crop, pumpkins. To farm pumpkins, you need a golden axe, a compactor talisman, and some way of getting to around 230% speed. I'm using farmer boots because they're cheap and they just work. To build the farm, you just need something that looks kind of like this. There's a million tutorials on YouTube about this, so just go watch one of them. I recommend having them with water, but you can do them without water, it doesn't really matter. So let's start the 5 minutes and see what we get. Alright, now that we're done, let's begin with farming XP. We started at about 92k farming XP and we ended at about 117k. This gives you a total of about 25k every 5 minutes of pumpkin farming. I should also mention that I didn't use a rabbit pet or any farming XP pots because I don't have a level 100 rabbit pet, and so I figured it would just be better if I didn't use any XP boosts. This means to get the true amount of XP gained, you're going to have to multiply by 1.5 because that's the total maximum amount of XP boost you can get with a level 100 rabbit pet and a farming XP potion. For money, I sold the pumpkins I got in this 5-minute period for 31k. You'll see later that that isn't that much, so not the best. For ease of harvest, pumpkins are actually really high up here. They're effortless to farm, take absolutely no concentration or brain power. You can watch a movie or YouTube while harvesting them. They're just really nice to harvest. For building the farms, they're not that bad. They're about in the middle. They take quite a bit of time, but they're not nearly as bad as some of the other farms in this video. Alright, let's give them a rating. Pumpkins are a 5 out of 5 for farming XP. They're really good in that regard. They're a 1 out of 5 for money, because they give basically nothing. They're a 5 out of 5 for satisfaction and ease of harvest. And they are a 3 out of 5 for how much time it takes to build the farm. Alright, let's move on to sugarcane. Sugarcane is exactly the same as pumpkins, except you need a hoe instead of an axe. The hoe should have harvesting 5 and telekinesis 1. Let's start the 5 minutes and see what we get. I started at about 117,000 farming XP and I ended at about 139.5 thousand XP, which is about 22.5 thousand XP per 5 minutes, just a little bit worse than the 25,000 per 5 minutes you get from pumpkins. I managed to sell the items I got from farming the sugarcane for 90k, which is 3 times better than what you can get from pumpkins in the same time. Farming sugarcanes is just as satisfying as farming pumpkins, and it's also just as effortless. Finally, making a sugarcane farm is by far the easiest farm to make. It is 1 layer of dirt, a little bit of water, and then you just have to place the sugarcane and some slabs. You don't need to till the soil, which is a massive time saver. Ratings for sugarcane. It's going to be a 4 out of 5 for farming XP because it's very close to pumpkins. It's going to be a 3 out of 5 for money because 90k is pretty good. It's going to be a 5 out of 5 for how satisfying it is to farm, and a 5 out of 5 for constructing the farm. So overall, sugarcane is a really good crop to farm. Next up is potatoes. All you need for this is a hoe with harvesting, replenish, and telekinesis. Replenish is the really important enchant here because it will replant all of your potatoes when you harvest them, which is a massive time saver. And as with all crops, you also need the compactor talisman. Alright, now let's run the 5 minutes. I started at about 139.5 thousand XP and I ended at about 145,000 XP. So that means you're getting about 5.5 thousand XP per 5 minutes, which is complete garbage. I don't know why you would waste your time with this crop, but hey, let's see how much money it gets. 132k per 5 minutes is actually pretty good, so if you want money and you don't care about the skill XP, potatoes are actually pretty good. With the farm I'd set up, it wasn't that easy to harvest them. It was pretty inefficient and I had to be staring at the screen the entire time. There's no way you're going to be watching a YouTube video while harvesting these. I know Aconsoft has a different farm design, but I didn't make it like that, so I'm just going off my personal experience. Building these farms also takes ages. It's a full layer of dirt, plus you have to hoe every single piece of dirt and then individually plant every single potato on every single piece of dirt. So it takes ages. Here are my ratings for potatoes. It gets a 1 out of 5 for farming XP, a 4 out of 5 for money, it gets a 2 out of 5 for satisfaction and ease of harvest, and another 2 out of 5 for how much time it takes to build the farm. I wouldn't bother with harvesting potatoes unless all your content and your entire brand depends on it. Let's move on to the last crop I actually have a farm for, cocoa beans. To farm cocoa beans, you're going to need an axe with the replenish enchant on it, and that's about it. And the compactor talisman as usual. Alright, let's run the farming test. I started at about 147.5k XP and I ended at about 160k. This means I got about 12.5k XP in the 5 minutes of farming, which is okay. It's not great, it's not as bad as potatoes either, so it's kind of halfway in between. The money, however, was really good. I sold the cocoa beans for 153k, which is insane for farming. That's about 1.8 mil per hour if you do this consistently. Unfortunately, satisfaction and ease of harvest isn't as good. It's a real pain to get the most efficient farming method down, and because you have to angle your mouse at this certain angle to get all of the cocoa beans, and it also just isn't as easy as farming sugarcane or pumpkins. And don't even get me started on building the farm. It is a nightmare. Granted, you don't need that many rows of cocoa beans, but the rows you do need to make take ages. You have to place each individual cocoa bean, which is just a massive time sink. So here are my ratings for cocoa beans. For farming XP, it is a 3 out of 5. It's decent, it's not great. For money, it is a 5 out of 5. It's the best one I've reviewed so far. Satisfaction, ease of harvest is a 3, and building the farm is definitely a 1. Cocoa beans are essentially potatoes, but twice as good. Don't do potatoes, do cocoa beans, they're way better. Alright, let's move on to the primary school maths section of this video. These are the crops that I didn't make farms for because it would take way too long. The first 2 crops I'm going to be reviewing are exactly the same as potatoes, so carrots and wheat. They give the exact same amount of farming XP, the only difference is the money. We can find how much money each of these is going to give by harvesting 50 of each crop and figuring out how much money they give relative to potatoes. What I found out is that wheat is pretty bad, there's no point ever doing wheat, but carrots on the other hand can actually be pretty good, about the same as potatoes, maybe even better. But the problem is, they're never going to be better than cocoa beans, so there's no point doing either of them. Just make a cocoa bean farm and it's going to be better for money and better for XP at the same time. So here are my ratings for both carrots and wheat. They're basically exactly the same as potatoes, so I'll just put the ratings up on screen and you can see the differences. The only difference is in the money section. Carrots are about equal, whereas wheat is a bit less. That's the only difference really. There's no point doing these crops anyway, so let's move on to the final crop, which is melons. Now, it's been a known fact that melons are worse than pumpkins because they give less farming XP, and the only reason you're doing pumpkins is farming XP. But after harvesting one row of pumpkins and one row of melons, I found that melons give twice as much money as pumpkins. The only problem is the slight reduction in farming XP brings them down to the level of sugarcane, and at that point, you may as well just make a sugarcane farm because they're easier and they give you even more money. So here are my ratings for melons. They get a 4 out of 5 for farming XP, a 2.5 out of 5 for money, a 5 out of 5 for harvesting, and a 3 out of 5 for construction. So those are all the crops I have to review in this video. I hope it helps you make some better choices on what farms to build, and I hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.